Hi there. If you're over 65, or somewhere near it, you've probably realized something profound. Wisdom doesn't come from books. It doesn't come from money. And it certainly doesn't come from the internet. It comes from living. From waking up one morning and realizing, the things I used to chase no longer matter. And the things I took for granted now mean everything. This kind of wisdom, what you hold in your heart at 65 and beyond. You can't buy it. You can't rush it. It's earned. Quietly. Patiently. 1 year at a time. So if you're in that season of life, where the world has gone faster, but you've chosen to slow down, where your heart has become softer, but your mind sharper, this video is for you. Make sure to subscribe and stay with me until the end, because what we're about to explore might gently change the way you see yourself and your life. 1. Time is the quiet teacher. There's something almost indescribable that happens after 65. It's not something you can see in the mirror. It's not the lines around your eyes, the thinning hair, or the slower steps. It's something far deeper, something quieter. A shift in your soul. A change in what you hear when the world finally goes silent. You begin to notice sounds you once rushed past. The soft rustling of leaves on a windy morning. The way birds call to each other at dawn, less noise, more music. The slow inhale and exhale of your own breath in the dark of night, and the sudden realization. I'm still here. I'm still alive. After 65, time stops feeling like something you have to chase. It becomes something that walks beside you. It doesn't push. It doesn't pull. It simply stays close and teaches quietly. And maybe that's why it becomes the greatest teacher you'll ever have. Because it doesn't shout. It doesn't scold. It waits. It whispers. And if you listen closely enough, it shows you the kind of wisdom that money can't buy. In Western psychology, there's a theory by Erik Erikson that speaks directly to this. He called it the stage of ego integrity versus despair. It's the final chapter of human development, usually beginning around age 65. At this stage, we no longer chase success or status. We begin to reflect. We ask ourselves one honest, tender question. Did I live a life worth living? That's not about being rich or being remembered. It's about looking back and feeling whole. It's about making peace with who we were, and about quietly becoming who we still have time to be. You see, in your younger years, your days were scheduled in hours and deadlines. You measured your worth by how much you could get done. But now you measure differently. You ask, was I kind today? Did I speak gently to myself? Did I notice something beautiful? Did I remember to be grateful that I woke up at all? That is wisdom. And it doesn't come from reading or learning. It comes from living. I remember a woman I once met in Northern California, Eleanor Davis, age 87. She had a soft, silver-white crown of hair and a presence that made you feel calm just by standing near her. I was giving a talk on aging and resilience. Afterward, she came up to me, placed her delicate hand on mine, and said, "You know, sweetheart, all my life, I was afraid of becoming irrelevant, of no longer being needed. But now I see. The quieter I become, the more clearly I hear the truth." I asked her, gently, "Where did you learn that?" She smiled, placed her hand on her heart, and whispered, "Time taught me. It speaks without speaking." That might sound poetic, but modern neuroscience agrees. At Stanford University, a long-term study on aging showed that as we enter late adulthood, the emotional landscape of our brains changes. The part of the brain that controls negative emotional responses, called the amygdala, begins to calm down. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, our center for compassion, insight, and empathy, grows more active. In other words, we react less. We reflect more. We stop needing to control. And we start needing to understand. That's why older adults often report feeling more at peace, even if their bodies are changing, even if the world moves faster than they can keep up. It's not because life got easier. It's because time helped them grow into something steadier. There's a kind of grace that comes from having lived through enough storms. You no longer need to prove anything. You just want to be present. At this stage of life, you don't need to answer to the world. You only need to answer to yourself. And that changes the questions you ask. Am I still living with love? Have I let go of old resentments? Can I forgive, even when I wasn't asked to? Am I still growing, even now? Those are not the questions of a beginner. They are the questions of someone who has earned their peace. I once interviewed a retired history teacher named Richard Morgan. He was 72 at the time, from a small town in Oregon. After retirement, Richard admitted that he felt lost. He didn't write. He didn't teach. He didn't read much. He said it felt like the world had gone quiet, and he didn't know what to do with the silence. Until one day, he took a walk in the park near his home. There, on a weathered bench, he saw an elderly woman crying. He didn't know her, and he didn't try to fix anything. He simply sat beside her, in silence. Minutes passed. Maybe 10. Maybe more. Then, the woman turned to him and said, "Thank you for not walking away." Something shifted in Richard that day. Not because he gave advice or changed anyone's life, but because, for once, he simply showed up with presence, not performance. From that moment forward, Richard started writing again. Not textbooks. Not lectures. Just letters, small, handwritten letters to his former students. Checking in. Asking how they were. Sharing little bits of wisdom from his quiet mornings and long walks. When I asked him what brought him back to life, he told me, "I didn't need to teach anymore. I just needed to live more honestly, and let time do the rest." And that is the kind of wisdom no university can give you. At 65 and beyond, life no longer feels like a race. It becomes a conversation. One where silence speaks. One where slowness reveals things speed could never show you. You begin to notice the small wonders. A flower that bloomed late this season. The warmth of sun through your kitchen window. The softness of your grandchild hug. Not rushed, not distracted, just real. These things used to pass you by. But now they stay with you. Because you're no longer chasing time. You're walking with it. Time teaches through experience, not explanation. It doesn't answer the question, "How can I win?" It invites you to ask, "What's truly worth keeping?" And when you stop measuring your life by productivity, you start measuring it by presence. That's where wisdom lives. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives softly. In the moment you forgive someone who never said sorry. In the moment you laugh at something you used to cry about. In the moment you realize that peace matters more than being right. If you're still reading, still listening, that tells me something about you. That you're ready. That maybe something inside you has begun to shift too. Maybe you've started to feel that your story isn't over. Maybe time has been trying to teach you something for years, and only now, in the quiet, are you finally able to hear it. That's the gift of this age. Not perfection. Not regret. But awareness. A deep, lasting, soulful awareness that says, "I've lived. I've loved. I've lost. And I'm still learning." And that learning, that's wisdom. That's what no one can sell you. And no one can steal from you. It's yours. So I hope you'll stay with me. Because this is only the beginning. What comes next will go even deeper. Into the parts of us that hurt, heal, and grow even after 70. Keep listening. Keep watching. And let's walk this quiet road of wisdom. Together. 3. When forgiveness becomes a gift to yourself. There's a quiet ache many of us carry after 65. It's not always physical. Sometimes, the deepest pain lives in memory. In the things left unsaid. In the wounds we thought time would heal. But that still sting when no one's watching. We don't always talk about it, but it's there. The betrayal that changed everything. The family member who walked away. The friend who let us down. The parent who never truly saw us. Or, the version of ourselves we still haven't forgiven. And over time, if we are not careful, those old hurts harden. Not into strength, but into walls. We build them to protect ourselves, of course. We tell ourselves, "I'll never let them do that again." And maybe we are right. Maybe it was necessary. But here's what life teaches us. Pain that is not transformed will always be transmitted. It leaks out in our relationships, in how we speak, in what we withhold, in how easily we get frustrated, in the joy we stop allowing ourselves to feel. Because deep down, something unresolved is still shaping us. That's why, after 65, forgiveness becomes less about others and more about ourselves. It's not about pretending what happened was okay. It's not about inviting hurt back into your life. It's not even about reconciliation, though sometimes that comes. Forgiveness is about freedom. Your freedom. Let me share a story. I once sat across from an 84-year-old woman named Jane in a retirement community in Oregon. She was elegant, with soft eyes and a voice that trembled only when she spoke about her sister. They hadn't spoken in over 40 years. The argument? Something small at first about money, a will, a misunderstanding. But it grew. Letters stopped. Holidays passed in silence. Grandchildren were born who had never met each other. And now, Jean was nearing the end of her life. She looked at me and said, "I thought I was protecting myself by staying angry. But the truth is, I was just lonely." Tears welled up in her eyes as she added, "I waited too long. She passed away last winter. And I never said I was sorry not for what happened, but for how long I let it last." Then she looked at me with a mix of sorrow and grace. If I could go back, I would have chosen peace over pride. Not for her. For me. Jean's story is not rare. Many older adults carry similar regrets not because they were weak, but because they were human. We all have wounds. But the question is, what will we do with them? Will we let them define us? Or will we, with the wisdom of time, choose to release them? Modern neuroscience gives us a powerful insight here. Studies at Stanford and UC Berkeley show that forgiveness changes the brain. It lowers cortisol levels, the stress hormone, reduces inflammation in the body, improves sleep, and even enhances cognitive function in aging adults. Forgiveness is not just an emotional decision. It's a biological gift we give to ourselves. People who forgive live longer, have better heart health, and report higher life satisfaction. Why? Because holding on to anger is exhausting. It's like carrying a heavy bag every single day. You get used to it. You forget how light life could be without it. But once you set it down, you breathe differently. You sleep deeper. You smile more easily. Forgiveness, truly, is not a favor to the person who hurt you. It's a healing act for your own soul. I once asked an elderly therapist named Dr. Lin what he believed was the most powerful emotional skill a person could develop in later life. He didn't hesitate. Forgiveness, he said. Because by the time we reach our 70s or 80s, everyone has a scar. What separates the peaceful from the bitter is what they've done with that pain. He paused, then added, "Forgiveness is the last great emotional task of aging well." And he was right. So many older adults think their emotional work is done. But sometimes, the hardest work is the quietest one. Sitting in a room alone with your memories. And whispering, "I forgive you." Or even harder, "I forgive myself." Because sometimes, what we struggle to let go of is not what someone else did, but what we did. Or failed to do. The missed opportunities. The harsh words. The choices we made when we didn't know better. But hear me now, friend. You are not the same person today that you were at 25, or 45, or even 65. You have grown. You have learned. You have softened. You have survived. And that alone makes you worthy of peace. So if there is someone you have not forgiven, a parent who wasn't kind, a spouse who betrayed, a friend who vanished, or the younger version of you who made a mistake, you don't need to wait for them to change. You don't need to wait for an apology that may never come. You can decide, today, that you no longer want to carry the pain, that you are ready to feel lighter, to laugh more freely, to rest more deeply, to love with an open heart again. Forgiveness is not a one-time act. It's a practice. Some days it's easy. Some days it isn't. But every time you choose to soften, every time you choose compassion over bitterness, you create space in your life for something beautiful. You create room for love to return, for connection to begin again, for joy to rise where pain once lived. I know, it's not easy. Sometimes, the pain feels too deep, the story too old, the wound too fresh. But remember this. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you deserve peace. And peace is the one thing you can't buy. You can only grow it. Within yourself. Through patience. Through courage. Through grace. So today, if this message touches something in you, if someone's face has come to your mind, don't push it away. Sit with it. Breathe. Say quietly, "I release you." Or "I release myself." And know this. It's never too late to be free. You've made it this far. You've carried so much. Now, it's time to lay something down. Not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more. Stay with me. In the next message, we'll explore what it means to live with purpose, not in the past, not in some future that may never come, but right here, in the ordinary beauty of today. Your story isn't over. In fact, it may be just beginning. 4. The quiet power of purpose. There comes a moment, usually sometime after 65, when the noise of the world finally fades. The job titles no longer matter. The rush to accumulate things quiets down. The calendar clears. And for the first time in a long time, you are left with space. Space to breathe. To reflect. To ask a powerful question. Now what? It's a question that can feel both freeing and frightening. Because for decades, life was full. You had responsibilities, people to care for, things to prove, goals to chase. But now, you wake up in the morning and wonder, what is today for? Not in a sad or hopeless way, but in a deep, soul-searching way. Because here's the beautiful truth no one tells you loud enough. Purpose doesn't retire. It evolves. Yes, the form may change. You may no longer run a company, raise young children, or work 9 to 5. But the need to feel useful, to feel needed, to feel alive, that doesn't end. It simply asks a new question. Who needs the version of me I've become? The science of purpose in aging. Let's start with something researchers discovered not too long ago. A study published in JAMA Network Open followed more than 7,000 adults over age 50. They found that people with a strong sense of purpose even in retirement had lower risk of stroke and heart disease, better cognitive health, reduced depression, longer life expectancy. Yes, having purpose literally helps you live longer and better. But here's what's interesting. Purpose in older age isn't always grand or world-changing. It doesn't require a business plan, or a TED Talk, or 1,000 followers on social media. True purpose at this stage is quiet. It's personal. And often, it's rooted in presence. Sometimes, it looks like being the one person your grandchild knows will really listen. Tending to a garden and feeling connected to something growing. Volunteering at a local shelter or church. Cooking Sunday dinner for your family. Calling someone who's lonely and saying, I thought of you today. Purpose can be as simple as showing up. With love. With intention. With care. The story of Mr. Henry. Let me tell you about Mr. Henry. He was a retired schoolteacher in Michigan. 72 years old. Widowed. His children had moved out of state. His house was quiet. Too quiet. For a while, he filled his days with crossword puzzles, TV, naps. But something was missing. He didn't say it out loud, but he felt invisible. Like life was happening elsewhere. One morning, while walking past the local elementary school, he heard a child crying near the front gate. She'd missed the bus and was afraid to go in late. Mr. Henry bent down, looked her in the eye, and said gently, "Would you like me to walk you in?" She nodded. That single moment led to something unexpected. The school asked if he'd be willing to volunteer 1 day a week just to sit with kids who needed someone to talk to. 1 day became 3. And 3 became 5. 5 years later, Mr. Henry became known as Grandpa Henry to hundreds of children, many of whom had no grandparents of their own. He never gave lectures. He didn't teach math. He just listened, smiled, remembered birthdays. And when asked why he did it, he said simply, "Because I finally realized I may not be as fast or strong as I used to be. But my heart still works just fine. And it wants to be useful." Purpose isn't pressure. Now let's be clear. Having purpose does not mean packing your schedule. It doesn't mean you have to hustle, stay busy, or do something dramatic. Purpose is not pressure. It's about alignment between who you are, what matters to you, and how you show up in the world. Sometimes, it means embracing slowness. There's purpose in sitting quietly with a grieving friend. In knitting a scarf for someone who's cold. In writing letters to your grandchildren, telling them who you are so they'll never forget. Purpose lives in the details. And often, it doesn't announce itself. It whispers. You may discover it when you ask yourself, who would miss me if I didn't show up today? What makes me feel like me again? What pain have I gone through that might help someone else? Where do I feel most alive, even in small ways? The legacy of everyday purpose. We often think of legacy as something big. A building named after us. A donation. A great invention. But the most lasting legacies? They are invisible. They live in stories told at dinner tables. In the habits your children learned just by watching you. In the courage your friend found after hearing you say, "You'll be okay." Legacy is what we leave behind in people's hearts. And that's where purpose lives, too. The older we get, the more we realize. It was never about the money, or the title, or the applause. It was always about the way we made people feel. The quiet power of your life is not in how loud you were, but in how much love you gave when no one was keeping score. What if I still don't know my purpose? That's okay. Purpose is not a destination, it's a direction. And sometimes, the search is the purpose. Try this. Wake up tomorrow and ask, who needs a little kindness today? Think about something you've survived and find someone who needs that strength. Make a list of things that bring you peace and do one of them slowly, with full attention. And remember, your presence is already a gift. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be young. You just have to be here with a heart that still wants to love and serve. That is enough. That is purpose. So, dear friend, if you've been wondering what your life is for now, know this. You are not past your prime. You are in your power. A new chapter is possible. Not one of noise, but of meaning. Not of striving, but of serving. You don't have to go far. Purpose might be waiting for you right at your kitchen table. In the next phone call. In the next child's smile. In the next small moment you choose to be fully present for. This kind of purpose? You can't buy it. But you can live it. And when you do, the world gets better just by having you in it. If this message has touched your heart, subscribe and share it with someone you love. Because the journey doesn't end at 65. Sometimes, that's exactly when it begins.